Hey everyone, it's me coming on strong. Hope you're feeling blessed no matter where you are. So if you clicked on the title, you too are also in a place where you understand that sometimes we have to take this accountability. We have to look at ourselves and see where we stand in this lifetime, where we stand in the moment, where we stand in our lives, period. How this all started in these last weeks, I will say, as you guys know, I'm a higher self channeler. My job primarily always affords me this ability to talk to people, see where they're at spiritually, see what they're trying to achieve, see where they're trying to go. But a lot of the time, people keep asking me questions about things that they're scared of or things that they're challenged with. And resoundingly, I totally understand where people are coming from, because I myself, when I first started on my journey too, it was very terrifying. There was a lot of things I had to overcome, and there's a lot of things we will have to overcome. But I want to pose this out to you, okay? The world seemingly is not making any more sense. I want you to take a moment and think of the last time. Three words, making sense. Because there is this idea of what we believe the world to be. And I would say that maybe this started with COVID, but the challenges that have come after COVID have just tumultuously kept going. And we could all postulate why this is. I'm always a fanatic when it comes to, bigger and crazier thinking sometimes. Like, personally, I feel like this changeover was orchestrated in a way to challenge us as a human populace, but at the same time gave us an opportunity to afford us into this breakout of the matrices that we were all living in for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 70 years, whatever the case may be. There are elderly people that have never seen this, and they say this daily. I speak to a lot, okay? And they're like, some of them even saw World War II in their lifetime, and they're still like, I don't understand what's going on. Because there's certain fundamental things that have broken down so poorly, so badly, that there's no consistency, that there's no liberty, there's no safety. And the things that they grew up knowing, even with a war, realized that they could have things like a home, stability, working for a purpose, having purpose, and creating a family, etc. And a lot of those things have been taken away from us. There is no more stability. There is no more comfortability. There is no more security. And ironically, in this flux that we're all facing, what I see from a lot of people is that a lot of people are still clinging to the old ideas simply because it felt safer. It felt warmer. It felt more understood, right? But as we move into this era of existence, when do we say goodbye to that reality and say hello to the reality we're posed with right now? Because that seems to be the fundamental problem I'm seeing with a lot of my clients, a lot of people that come to me, that gravitate towards me, because they keep talking about a world that no longer exists. They keep saying, I'll give an example. I have a person that I know who is a teacher. She's been a teacher for 15 years. In the last couple of years, she's had to go on some, health leaves, because she can't keep up with the way things are changing and structured. She doesn't agree with a lot of the changes that have taken place over these course of years. Now, what she faces currently is this feeling inside of breaking out. And yet she pauses. And a lot of people have noticed this happened today with another family member of mine who kept reverting back to a time frame. It's like everybody's on pause. And they're all waiting for this time frame to go back in time, waiting on this time frame to go back in time. It keeps people in this state of perpetual numbness because they are so terrified to move forward in their own right that they stand still, hoping that if they just, close their eyes, if they just cross their fingers, that this world will reappear. The hope they have inside is misdirected to a past existence, and it's not really opening their eyes to what is currently happening. There are so many millions of us that have shifted. There's so many millions of us that are currently shifting. There's so many millions of us that are speaking up right now. But however, there's so many of us that are using our voices in such a tragic way. A lot of persons I notice that I see online, etc., they're all angry. The voice inside is coming out because of the anger. Because again, they're trying to understand why they can't have the world they once had. So they're just fighting right now, and they're placing a whole bunch of hate, a whole bunch of anger, and a whole bunch of fury that's on the inside, because they're channeling it in a way to try to reclaim this old life that doesn't exist anymore. And this is the big problem, because we're not realizing that we're fueling a different type of world, and it's not a world that is bombarded with everything that we see. Because realistically, if we're all angry, if we're all upset, if we're all trying so hard to fight against the river or the current, meaning the current reality, then we're basically not using and fueling that energy and that growth in a way that's predominantly going to change and evolve our human existence. Why I say this is because right now we are being afforded so much by the Creator, by everyone intergalactically that's trying to help us. And the reason why we're just a little on the offside is because we are still numb, and we're like in a standstill freeze frame, hoping that that old world will realign. And it's really hindering our capabilities to move forward. And it's actually stifling the power that we have from within. Yes, it's great to chime up and speak truth. Yes, I totally understand that. And this is the thing that people don't realize. It's one thing to chime up online. It's another thing to chime up in your area, with your family, etc. But is the chiming up really just a band-aid to make you feel more secure? And this is the real crux. Because if you don't actually look to what you can actually achieve with the power that you've been given, or achieve with the new open vibrance that you have, and if it is with a misguided channeling of fear, scarcity, fear of change, if you're using the voice to say, hey guys, look at this problem, look at that problem, look at this problem, the energy goes towards directing to the problem. It doesn't go towards solution-based results. And what happens is that when things don't change, yes, you've been pointing it out and pointing it out and pointing it out. However, what we need to shift our actual perceptions to is, great, we know what the problem is, how do we fix it? We know what the problem is, how do we fix it? We know what the problem is, how do we fix it? And this is where so many people are getting stuck, because they feel more powerless in a world that is designed right now especially to make you feel less and less powerful. Even though you're given the platform of online to chime up about certain injustices, etc., it may not change the injustices, etc. And then it squanders and it hinders you, because you're like, oh, I did so much fighting. Why isn't this changing? Why isn't this going the way I wanted to? I have 1 million people watching me. Why have they not moved with me? And the thing is that there's a lot of us that have learned how to shift this energy. But what I will say today is that if you do see me, here's some tips of how you can make the actual changes move a lot smoother towards the goals that you're actually after. First challenge that I see with people, like for example, I'll use the person I was talking about. This person has a hell of a funny demeanor. Okay, she spends a lot of her time posting posts and having a banter with those friends around her, and she keeps getting told over and over again by people, start a podcast, start a blog, start a podcast, start a blog. Now, she stays in this perpetual place where she doesn't actually go to achieve it, because she feels like, oh, I have a voice, you know what I mean, amongst my friends, amongst my family. But if I were to try to channel that voice into something more progressive, I may lose my position. A position she does not have right now, a position she may not ever have again, simply because as the spiraling of that organization that she was affiliated with, like I said, she was a teacher for so long, when the school board doesn't fit in her molding of what makes sense, and if things don't move progressively towards the way she needs them to, she may have to let that position go. So she stays stagnant. She's not able to go back to her actual job. And if she did go back to her actual job, she would go back into the same problem she just went through, which is that it repels her. It's totally against every part of her nature. And then there's this other side of her that feels like, I need to say something, but she doesn't want to broadcast it in such a strong enough way to make a wave of change that may do something great for her energy, because it's so stunted right now. And the thing is that a lot of us are in that exact same situation. Yes, we might chime up online, but we're actually not doing the actions to get the best channeling of our energy. For example, with myself, okay? I'll give you an example of what I mean. I had a lot of love to give to people. I knew that my ability was great, that it could do great things for people. But I was put in a cookie cutter box of being called a psychic over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. So I was like, okay, no matter what I do online, no matter what videos I make, no matter what happens, people aren't responding to what I do as a modality. And it took this shift to say, I'm no longer this person anymore. I can't rely on being a law clerk anymore. I can't even foresee myself going back into that world. But I was still stuck because I was trying to stay safe. I was just like the teacher friend of mine that I know, that I was stunted in this energy over again, because I didn't want to do the one thing, which was to challenge my capabilities in an open scene, because of fears that all creep in for us. So it makes sense in the moment when we're online and we're like, fuck this, and da, 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 da. But then the same problem occurs, and then we go rage out again online, and nothing changes, and nothing changes. Why? Because the actual shift, like you may have to make, like she might have to make, like I had to make, was where I actually put myself out on the line, going out there in person, doing lives, offering everything I had for free, going to tell everybody in my neighborhood, and trying to live up to the stigma that they would put me in. But then what I noticed was that because I was not as scared of what they would say about me, I used what I had, right? Instead of just making videos and saying what I had, I used what I had. And then I noticed that there was a change that evolved. Now in my area, people know what I do, right? But they now gravitate towards me because I showed them what I do versus saying what I do. And the thing is that shift of showing versus saying makes a huge difference. And in the case with my friend who's the teacher, she's saying a lot of stuff, but she needs to show that she can do this. She needs to show what she's capable of. People are very fearful of the gifts that are being handed to them right now. If it is an advocacy gift, if it is a healing gift, if it is all these things, so many of us are so torn with, how do I break through? How do I help people? How do I tell people what I do? How do I say all the things that I'm about right now? How do I walk into it? The walking into it part is what is really needed right now. Because again, this is all the challenge is. Okay, let's just say, for example, God gives you a gift, right? If you don't give that gift to anyone else or show anyone the gift, then technically you're stifling God's gift. You know what I mean? The gift is for others to open, not for you. It wasn't made for you. It was made for others to see and to feel and to experience. That is the true gift. You are just the entity that embodies the ability to provide the gift. Put it this way, you're like Santa Claus. Santa Claus doesn't hold all the gifts to himself. He gives them all away. That's the gift that Santa Claus is. We all know he's a fictitious character, but you get my drift. So the problem that a lot of people are facing is that because they feel like the old world might come back, they stay stunted. They say a lot of time-ups, but they won't walk into the showing of their gifts. Today, I was with my cousin and his girlfriend, and she was telling me how recently, and I'm saying this is happening recently for a lot of you out there, she started realizing that she's having premonitory dreams. So much so that when she goes to work, the things that she sees in her dreams are showing up in work, or she's saying them to people at work when she's on lunch and things like that. And people are coming back at her going, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened. My father passed away on the date you just said. That was a premonition in your dream, that it was the final days. That was his last day of living. And she was expressing to me how scared she was. She was like, oh my gosh. She's like, oh, what am I going to do? She's like, what if like I see demons? What if I see, and we always go to these places, just like my friend who's a teacher, she must have made 1,000 excuses. And if you could imagine, what most of us do is we're just great excuse generators. Like literally, the amount of time and energy people waste, and I did this too, I was a great excuser. Oh, I can't do it because of my mom. Oh, I can't do it because of this. Oh, I can't do it because how would I pay the bills? How would I do this? How, la, 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 la. And it's the same as my friend. She has the equipment. She has the time. She has the money. She has everything afforded to her. The only thing is she won't step into it to go do the podcast. She's told me how it's a saturated market. She's told me how she doesn't think her voice is great. She's told me every single reason in the book except for actually doing it. To actually amalgamate what the real reality is. That's what a lot of us are doing. We're living in the nostalgia of a world that's never going to come back. We're in the energy we need to be in, but we're selling ourselves short because we're telling ourselves that we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't be this and we can't be that. But if we actually just took the moment to attempt it and maybe even fail at it. But at least we could say to ourselves, we tried. That is the true shift that needs to happen in this time, in this true ascension shift. Because thinking about it, posturing about it, and the postulating, I mean, fearing it, loathing it, or being terrified of it is all not real. It's just like the other part. We're not going to get that old world back. It's not real anymore. The now is the real thing. So technically, when you're all up in your head about what you can and can't do, it's all a fabrication because you haven't even attempted it. So therefore, the reality you've put in your head isn't real because you haven't even tried it. You get what I mean? It's like saying to yourself, oh, I don't want to eat that pizza because it probably has too much cheese and it probably has too much sauce. And I know I won't like that pizza, but yet you've never tried the pizza. So you have no idea. You're just making and fabricating things that have not happened yet. And the same as my cousin's girlfriend. She was talking about all these premonitions and how people were like, oh my gosh, this is resonating. This is hitting for me. So I spoke with her today. We were coming from an event and she was like, oh, I'm just so scared I'm going to see demons. Oh, I'm just so scared that everyone's going to come after me and think I'm crazy and think I'm this and think I'm that. And I had to stop her and I said, hey, I go, has anybody said this to you? No. Has everyone found you helpful? Yes. Do you think that gifts come from God or from, the demonic side? She was like, I'm like, do you think demons can give gifts? And she was like, no. I'm like, do you think God could give gifts? And she was like, yes. So I was like, do you think God would show you demons? And she was like, she got us freeze framed and she was like, no. I'm like, so why do you think God would give you a gift and then scare the crap out of you? Is that what you think God would do? And everyone who's used your gift has found it helpful. I'm like, in a sense, when we don't actually move the dial, it's a selfish thing. It's just like my teacher friend. She might have so many great things and so because it's specific to her her actual profession. She wants to break more teachers out of the profession that are kind of shackled right now in the profession, and she's stifling herself. There could be teachers waiting for her to do this subconsciously, just like there could be people waiting for my cousin's girlfriend subconsciously at her work or wherever she goes to start talking about her premonitions. And the same goes for my viewers right now. Every single one of us is endowed power. We don't know what our power can do. We don't know how many people it'll affect. And we don't have the right to take it away. We cannot squander the gifts that God gave us and hold it into ourselves selfishly and say, oh, what is that movie? I've never watched it. The Lord of the Rings, there's that character that's like, oh, my precious. And he holds on to the ring and it causes all this craziness and he starts to go insane because he starts to really delve into the darkness. And that's what starts to happen for us too, because the darkness doesn't want you to ever evolve. The darkness wants you to stay in the excuses, why you can't do it, why you can't show it, why you can't be it. Because if you don't ever move from the saying, the talking to the doing, then you have never actually exalted it. You've actually never opened it. You've actually kept the gift to yourself, and then it fizzles away within you versus being shared and multiplied, excruciatingly showcasing more light. And that is what the dark side does not want. And that's why you live in this continuous repetitive cycle of excuses. And if it's not excuses, then you continue in this repetitive cycle of anger and frustration because the words you're saying are not making the changes you want. And then there's some of us that are sitting silently, not even wanting to go for our gifts because we're waiting and hoping that this old world will resurface. We're like, Dorothy going, I hope, that she'll go back, and leave Oz and go back to her farm. It's like the thing that becomes so paramounting is that in this time, the world is going in a trajectory to change. The world is going in a trajectory to ascend. And this world is dividing slowly. And the thing is that as I've been sitting here these last weeks, I haven't really had a lot to say. And it's not because I don't have a lot of things that go through my mind, but it's because I feel like there's only so much us way showers can do. You, as the person watching, actually have to take what the person's saying and actually do something different. You cannot just watch the videos. You actually have to absorb it and practice it. And it's not easy. Because let's just put it this way. The way I feel about this change is that there's going to be those of us that if you could proverbially think that this is a boat or a train headed in some direction, and you need the velocity in your legs to run after that train or to catch up to that boat or to get on the boat or get on the train, okay? And let's say, for example, as you broaden and open up and you absorb more light and start showing your gifts and you're building that inertia and that momentum. And it's like as if like you have become this vibrant, fierce velociter that can catch that train, that can catch that wave, that can ride the wave because you're just at a speed that meshes with it. But if you stay stagnant on the other side and then you see the ship at the very last day taking off, and you haven't been, practicing your running, or you haven't been practicing, trying to catch up to it, as it was about to pour. Like if you started the run before the fact, you could probably catch it. But if you're really just going to wait to the last minute, you may miss it. And then there will be those that don't even know that there was a boat or a train leaving the station, period, or the port. And that's even sadder. And that's the thing. It's like I find as the divide's going, it's like there's those that I feel in my heart, a lot of us are going to have to just let go because they just truly never even participated. They stay stagnant, maybe wishing for a world that's never going to be again. And that's sad. But then there's those of you that are in this state, that are on the brink, you know what I mean? You're just like so close. You're so close to saying, I'm just going to take that first step to doing. First step to doing. Let go of all the excuses, because the excuses is what the dark force wants you to believe in. It's not real. You haven't tried. This is like somebody, and I know I'm going to use, but this is the easiest way I could say it. It's like when you're a teenager, right? And we're all full of hormones. And, we're feeling out kissing, and we're feeling out touching bodies and all that stuff, right? Now, there's those of them that talk a big game about sex, right? Every guy's like, oh yeah, I banged that broad, I put it in, and and there's women that are like, oh yes. But at the end of the day, they talked a lot, but a lot of them didn't even walk the walk. You know what I'm saying? And then there were those that actually did it and experienced the euphoria and knew that it was an amazing act and knew what it actually felt like. And then there were those that just talked about it. So there's a huge difference between just talking about it and actually doing the deed. And you're missing out. And I'm not trying to relate this to sex, but this is the best way I could describe it. Because you could stay a talker forever. And then you can never be someone who acts and actually gets to feel it, experience it, know it. And know what you're actually missing out on. Whereas you could stay a talker and an excuser. You could be like, oh, I don't want to talk to that girl because she's this way. Or I don't want to talk to that guy because he's this way. Because of fears of actually participating. And that's totally okay. And I know this is a weird analogy, but it's the best way I could describe it. You know what I mean? There comes a point where you're like, I've talked enough about this. I need to actually see what I'm missing out on. Or I need to actually see what this is all about. Seeing is believing, right? Doing, participating. And the thing about participation is that it takes practice. That you have to learn. You have to grow in it. So if you've spent your whole time talking and never actually acting, you don't have much to stand on. And then there are those that don't even talk and don't even walk and don't even try. And I know this is such a weird analogy, but this is kind of where I see people getting stagnant and stuck in. It's like they're so comfortable waiting for the old world to reappear. And then there's those that are angry that the old world is not here, and all the disappointments that they see and all the things that they want to change with their mouths. And then there are those that are like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done being the victim. I'm done making excuses. I'm going to take the power I personally have that I was endowed by God to actually do something. And the thing is that a lot of us, and I will say this, the two women I was talking about, you know what one of the main things was why they didn't want to do it? Why the one didn't want to start a podcast and why the other one doesn't want to use her premonitions? It was so simple. Not only is it about the failure factor, but it's also about the fact that not only was it their fear of succeeding, it was their fear of not knowing who they would be when the success came. But also at the same time, that is a huge fear that runs through all of us, is who are we if we actually step into it? And do we have, the other thing that also hits them is that the fact is like, some of us are not made for going viral. Some of us are not made for all millions and billions of people. You know what I'm saying? And it's so wondersome that, like, to feel that our place doesn't have the power to change things is really truly what is terrifying in this world. Because not for nothing, everyone keeps saying to themselves, oh, I love God. Oh, I don't want to, there's this real fear of people have, I don't want to go to hell, and I don't want the devil to run my life. And, but you want to know something? What the real truth is that by you keeping a lid on who you are is actually working in cahoots with that darker Lord's agenda. So technically, the fear that you fear most, you're actually participating in, and you don't even know it. So for all of the people out there that are like, oh, I won't let the government take me over. I won't let the dark forces take me over. I won't let this, but they don't act. They never succeed from the talking to the acting part. You staying stagnant and still in this place all the time actually helps in participation of the Dark Lord's agenda. You're actually closer to living the fear you're most terrified of, because you're like this with the Dark Lord. Not that you're a sinner, not that you're doing anything wrong, but the point is that the minute that you're on the brink from going here to here, believe me, the Dark Lord is right beside you in your ear, chiming up all the fears to stop you from making that one shift, that fearful, terrifying leap into God's world. Truly. I wish I knew that back then. And it doesn't matter if I knew it back then. When I finally figured it out, I was like, wow, like I was actually doing the bidding of the Dark Lord, because I refused to step into my nature. I refused to take the gifts that God gave me, work with God. Everybody spends their lives going to church and doing all these acts, but then they won't actually share what God gave them innately, uniquely, and profoundly. And that's a huge change, and that's a huge difference. It's one thing to go to church and participate and do all those things, and that's safe. But you know what it is when you should be a preacher? You know what it is when you feel like you should be going to Africa? You know what it is when you feel like you should be helping children that are less fortunate? And sometimes God calls us to do all kinds of stuff that is terrifying. Trust me, it is terrifying, because it breaks out of that old world that we're so accustomed to. A lot of us are comfortable to get here, but a lot of us are not comfortable to get here. Because when you have to go here, it means you're vulnerable. When you have to go here, you're really out on a limb. When you have to go here, you could fall, you could fail, and no one will be there other than God to pick you up. And you don't know that when you're here. You think you're going to fall flat on your face. You feel like nothing's going to come of it. The whole world's against you. The whole world is going to be laughing at you. But really, all you're doing is falling into the Dark Lord's projections of failure and mistrust, and it's leading you so far from what God actually is. Because God does not want you to fall on your face. God will not let you fall on your face. God will be there to make sure and ensure that all of those that are participating with you will be just as pleasant and lovely. And that's the thing. A lot of us have this misconstrued idea of what God really is. Because if you really do believe in the God I believe in, God's our protector and our diligent provider. So when my cousin's girlfriend said to me, oh, I'm scared, I'm this, I'm like, do you really think the God that we are praising, like you wear this cross on your neck and that Jesus died for, is really of this malevolent nature? That's not the right Lord, is it? We're not listening to the right Lord, are we? Because the Lord I know is the one that would chime in and say things like, you are loved. You will do great. You will do awesome. I will never let you down. I will be there for you every step of the way. That is the Lord I pray to. So if you are definitely at a place where you're just like, I don't know, how do I get my version of power? How do I seep into? How do I secure this for myself? Think about the logistics and think about the simple principles of what you believe God to be. And if you live in the fears, think of the Lord you're actually serving. Because by you staying here or you staying there, is actually exactly where that darker Lord wants you to be. That darker Lord loves that you don't go reaching. That darker Lord loves that you don't even try. That darker Lord loves that you'll go into another cycle again, never getting to that, resplendent, robust existence. Because should you do that, you would defeat the Lord, the Dark One, right? No bounds, no shackles. It would be you and God all the time. God and you all the time. Just walking step by step together. So when people get confused about why they stay where they stay, I hope this message finds you, because that is the truth that I hope everyone finds, is that God would never abandon you. God would never mislead you. God would never betray you. God would never send you the nastiest of the nastiest when you're using the gift that the Creator gave you in the first place. And if you have those thoughts, think of where the thoughts are coming from. Think of who your Creator truly is. And if you can believe in that and hone into that, then you will have no problem going from here to there. Love you lots, guys. Catch you next time. Bye for now.